we have an understanding of history, sort of an intuitive sense of how history goes, which is basically a story, isn't it? And in the modern world, it's a story of progress. So we used to be superstitious and believe in all these nonsense gods. But thank goodness the Enlightenment says that we've got rid of that. And through technology and through reason, we're becoming more and more advanced. And people used to think that eventually we'll perfect ourselves. I don't think people tend to think that anymore, but there's still this idea of progress, that history is a story. Foucault says that is wrong, actually. And he sees history as a series of ruptures. So it's not one nice progression from stage to stage over time, but it's just a series of different ways of looking at the world. In some of his writing, he calls these epistemes, different frameworks for understanding reality. And we tend to think of history, I think, as a series of great influential people. We've got Martin Luther King, who is a wonderful "I Have a Dream" speech, transformed society and so forth. Foucault's not interested in people. He's interested in concepts. So the way that he puts it is, I don't want a philosophy of consciousness, I want a philosophy of concepts. And it's the ideas that we have, our mental furniture, if you like, that shape history, not individual people doing wonderful things. And he's also not particularly bothered, and this will sound really strange, about what was said in any particular period of history. And you think, well, how can you do history without paying attention to what was said?
Yeah.
He focuses on what it was possible to say at any particular period in history, what our concepts allowed us to think. So in his early writing on madness, for example, he will say that at one particular point in history, you've got a concept like unreason in the early modern period. And he says into that concept, you throw all sorts of different groups of people. You throw people who today we would classify as having mental illness. You also throw vagabonds and other groups of people. And within that way of looking at the world, you just can't think mental illness in the way we do now. You just don't have that category. You have different categories with different shapes to them. And what he's interested in are the shapes of these categories, what your concepts allow you to think at a particular period, regardless of what people actually did with those concepts. So philosophy of ruptures, philosophy of concepts, and a philosophy of epistemes, which is what it's possible to say rather than what actually was said. And that's how Foucault wants to try and rethink history for us.